They say your golden years are the best time of your life, where you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Except for boomers, of course. In the home, they live off the fruits of theirs and yours. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Leo, and Bootube Breakdowns is here to save your scary movie night from becoming dead on arrival. Right off the bat, The Home scores a 6.4 out of 10, landing it solidly in our Ghoul Drool category. But here's the thing. I've already had to have my life force unknowingly sucked out of me every night so a bunch of entitled boomers can get freaky in the sheets, just so you can get this rating. And in a few minutes, I'll show you exactly why The Home earned it. And hey, if you disagree with my score at the end of the video, be sure to jump off a roof and land lengthwise on a spiked fence, and tell me all about it in the comment section. So what is The Home about? Meet Max, former foster kid with more baggage than an overhead compartment on Spirit Airlines. He gets a job at a creepy retirement home to avoid some jail time for some graffiti he got caught tagging a building with. At first, it's all bingo and awkward stares, but things start to spiral once Max starts to hear some screams coming from the 4th floor vents, which he was explicitly told not to enter. As the residents get weirder and the walls start whispering, Max begins to suspect his childhood trauma might be tied to his haunted geriatric purgatory. Cue the descent into madness, a few cheap scares, and a mystery that feels like Shutter Island if it had a worse diet and no health insurance. The movie tries to juggle psychological horror with supernatural hints, but ends up dropping a few balls and lighting one of them on fire. Pete Davidson actually plays it straight, which is scarier than any ghost in the movie. Whether it's ghosts, conspiracies, or dementia-fueled cult energy, The Home is a messy but watchable descent into maybe trauma was the monster all along. The story in The Home starts exactly how you'd expect. Troubled youth becomes troubled adult, gets slapped with a do or jail job assignment, and ends up stuck in a haunted retirement home. The setup's been done before, sure, but credit where it's due, it's executed well enough to keep you from immediately rolling your eyes. At first, you think the residents are just senile or sweet or possibly victims themselves, but as the movie picks up steam, the larger conspiracy starts crawling out of the woodwork, and suddenly everything clicks into place like a well-oiled trauma machine. There's some clunky exposition, people monologuing like they're being paid by the syllable, but nothing too painful. And I'll say it, I was fully ready to hate Pete Davidson in this. The second he showed up, I thought, great, the I'm famous for being famous guy is our lead. But by the midpoint, I was rooting for him. He's not rewriting the method acting handbook, but he took the role seriously, and that goes a long way in a movie like this. For a story that could have phoned it in, it delivered something memorable. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Now, while The Home isn't without its hiccups, it's a solid template for how to execute a slow burn horror, at least in the first half. Max being a janitor is the perfect excuse to have him lurking around, sweeping floors, and accidentally uncovering red flags in the building. Instead of wasting time with atmospheric filler and ominous violin swells over nothing, the movie lets each weird moment escalate naturally, giving the sense that something is deeply wrong without blowing the reveal too early. But somewhere in the middle, the film hits a pothole. A sudden pivot into government conspiracy is technically explained, but it lands like a drunk elbow. Loud, messy, and kind of off rhythm. It breaks the tension just long enough to feel like a different movie before snapping back to the original tone. Honestly, if they had just stuck with the supernatural angle, it would have been a smoother ride. The ending is a chaotic bloodbath that trades nuance for mayhem. It's dumb, fast, and weirdly satisfying, though definitely rushed. That said, I was never bored, not even once. Final pacing score, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. So this isn't a scary movie, not really. It's a psychological thriller with a splash of gore and just enough body horror to keep you flinching. At first, it flirts with the idea of a haunting. Then it gaslights you into thinking it might be one of those unreliable narrator delusion spirals. But by the time the, let's call it vampiric cult is revealed, the real horror finally steps out of the shadows. The fear here isn't about what jumps at you, it's about what's quietly rotting beneath the surface. It's one of those scarier in theory than in practice kind of movies. Credit where it's due though, the practical effects are solid. The atmosphere is claustrophobic, and the slow building paranoia actually does its job. You don't just watch Max spiral, you spiral with him. Still, I'm docking 2 points for cheap scares that fell slapped in like a studio note. Fear score lands at a modest 4 out of 10. No nightmares, but I'll definitely be checking for hidden cameras. When it comes to fun, the home throws a little bit of everything at the wall, and to its credit, a surprising amount of it sticks. The psychological thriller setup is textbook at first. I'm in a creepy place, weird stuff's happening, but everyone else is acting normal, so I'll gaslight myself into going along with it. But the tension builds steadily, and watching that unravel was a genuine treat. The practical mutilation effects are gnarly in the best way, and the whole, are these dementia patients unstable or just fucking with Max? That angle was darkly hilarious. And listen, full credit where it's due. They didn't just tease the eye needle. They did the eye needle. Full puncture, no cutaway. Gross? Absolutely. Over the top? Yeah. But weirdly satisfying in that I can't believe they showed it kind of way. That said, the film has a very loud millennial voice, and it never misses a chance to take a swing at boomers. Once or twice is funny, but by the 6th time, it felt like they were just pandering. Still, I had a blast, and I would give it an 8 out of 10. Now for the ending, because, of course, after all that build-up, we land in the horror equivalent of a shrug and a blood-splattered wink. Max chugs what is essentially boomer Viagra serum, grabs an axe and a hammer, and goes full Home Depot Punisher on the cult. Dumb? Yes. Bloody? Yes. Satisfying? Sure. But the execution felt oddly sanitized. One swing per person? Really? If you're going to sell me on a vengeance-fueled rage rampage, I want to see some rage. Like 5 or 6 brutal cathartic swings, not a polite tap and drop. And don't even get me started on how they use the axe and hammer like they were surgical scalpels instead of blunt trauma instruments. Then there's the storm conveniently hurling a chunk of roof onto Max's parents. Why give us the emotional payoff of revenge when you can just call it an act of God and roll credits? That choice robs the story of closure and gives the villains an easy out. The 4th floor rescue also wraps up in a don't think about it too hard kind of way. Like the movie hit its runtime limit and had to close the tab. Final score for ending, I'd give it a 5 out of 10. Not offensive, just lazy dumb fun that could have gone harder. So that's Bootube Breakdowns' take on The Home. Averaging our scores places this movie at a 6.4 out of 10, which lands solidly in our Ghoul Drool category. Do you agree with my rating? Scream your score in the comments. Tell me what horror flick I should gut next. If this saved your spooky vibes, smash that like, share with your horror crew, hit that bell notification, and subscribe to Bootube Breakdowns for more killer verdicts. Keep it creepy, and I'll haunt you in the next review.